Welcome to our 11th episode of Housing Matters, your go-to podcast for all things real estate. We cover a wide range of topics to help you navigate the housing market with confidence, whether you're buying your first home, looking to invest, or exploring development opportunities. Each episode features insights from industry experts, including mortgage professionals, developers, investors, entrepreneurs, and more, providing you listeners with valuable knowledge and practical tips. And today, I'm really excited to have with us a very innovative and outstanding entrepreneur in our state, Ben Davis. Ben is the co-founder of the Box since 2018, I believe, and the founder and CEO of Adura Building Systems and the co-founder of the Portland Container Company since 2017. Ben is really a salt-of-the-earth entrepreneur with a passion for composite construction and a drive to remove plastics from our oceans. Ben began his career in the marine industry as a skipper and professional sailor aboard many vessels and leading teams around the world. And Ben used his experience to start his first business at 25. That's the same time that I got sworn into the legislature in Maine, 25. This early venture taught him the fundamentals of cultivating teams, serving clients, and building something from the ground up. So, Ben, you have had quite a lot of experience in your, how old are you now?
38.
I'm 38 as well. So in your 38 years of experience, and entrepreneurship really is at the core of it. But you're originally from Maine, and your entrepreneurial journey has led you on some really exciting things, including Box. Can you share about your background and how your career started, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matt. This is really exciting to be talking to you today. I grew up here in Maine. I'm a mid-coast kid. Went to Lincoln Academy in Damascotta, Newcastle area. Grew up in a little town outside of that called Nobleboro. Grew up on the water. So my family had a sailing charter business in Florida. And right after high school, I was one of the folks who flew the coop and left Maine and for about a decade, and really on all things on the water and on boats. Started my career sailing, then in the family business, and branched out. It took me kind of all over the world. Was in the Pacific for quite a while through my 20s, and ended up back here in Maine about 9 years ago. Mm-hmm. We got the biz going, and a lot of details between here and there. But
did you sail back here from the Pacific?
Not quite. took the big flying plane there. But when I came back. We started Portland Container Company around 2017, had a big kind of life event happen that looking to change course and try something new. Uh-huh. And we got Portland Container going as really our first venture into modular buildings and more things land-based.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about Box and that transition to modular construction. After starting the Portland Container Company, you transitioned to Box and Adura Building System. Can you walk us through how the idea evolved from recycled shipping containers, which is what you were doing right with Portland Container Company, to modular spaces made from plastic, essentially?
Yeah, absolutely. So Portland Container, which we're still operating and is a great business serving folks basically from the mid-coast all the way to southern Maine. Mm-hmm. Portable storage. We're like the local version of pods. So they're not technically shipping containers. They're portable storage units that are typically 8 foot by 16 foot long, 8 feet wide, and they can be delivered anywhere, just like you see the pods in people's driveways and that sort of thing. Yeah. So we had these little buildings, and we're getting more familiar with the logistics of moving them around and how we could serve people moving their stuff. And there's a photographer in Maine who's a wonderful person. His name's Tim Greenway. Does a lot of work for Maine Biz and those things. And he was taking our picture one day for the Maine Biz magazine and talking about how he could. He needed a spot to display his artwork, and that artwork was photographs, and he was trying to get into an art gallery for First Friday Art Walk in Portland, and They were all full up, and he couldn't find a spot. And we said, Tim, why don't we dress up the inside of one of our containers, and we'll put it on Congress Street, and you can have a mobile art gallery.
Like an instant pop-up?
Like an instant pop-up. And so that was op box number one. And we paid $15 for that parking spot on a Friday night, and he ended up making thousands of dollars in art sales. And that was our kind of light bulb moment. And the first op box, and how opportunity box came up, because when we landed that little modular building in a parking spot, one of the things that we really stand behind with op boxes is that they're it creates instant opportunity and instant community. So when that meteor landed on Congress Street with this art gallery that wasn't there that morning, and then that night it has all his beautiful artwork in it, it literally was instant opportunity for him, and created instant community by this thing that wasn't there an hour ago is now there.
Yeah.
And so that's really how we started the idea, and it's grown from there. And we get to go down a lot of really interesting avenues. Essentially, Opbox is a vehicle for other people's missions, dreams, and ideas. So other people's businesses, and it's just a really good vehicle for bringing your brand, your mission, your product to your community or the customers you want to be in front of.
So that's what OP stands for, opportunity.
Opportunity box,
The
yes.
opportunity box.
Exactly.
Cool.
Instant opportunity.
And that's growing and thriving. And what's your vision for that part of the business?
Yeah, so we in 2019, 2018, we started converting the portable storage units into these mobile pop-up shops. Very focused on retail, hospitality, community infrastructure, that side of things. Since then, we've evolved the building itself with Edura, and we'll talk more about how that happened. But the vision really is to continue to serve hospitality, retail, community infrastructure type businesses with these mobile vehicles for their vision.
And why this instead of like buying a ice cream van or something? You know what I mean? That's the thing that comes to mind, or a hot dog drive around van. You know?
For some use cases it works really well. Some use cases it's not the best fit. For food is a great example. So most of the Opboxes, particularly in the hospitality space and that sort of stuff, we complement food trucks and stuff like that. So we do Opbox villages around the country, which is clusters of these. And it's basically how people want to experience brands or shopping or any of those things now. You know, we all know what's happening with shopping malls and getting inside a big closed building with neon lights and stuff like that is not as fun as if you're outside and in the open and you get to experience these different brands and services and products in the open air. And so a lot of people like that. And it works for a lot of use cases, some of which some use cases it's not the best thing for. But yeah, that's our job, is to find the right fits.
So when people are buying these, are they the individual vendors buying them, or are you having like these villages are curated by another entrepreneur who maybe gets 20 of them and then goes around and gets somebody that's a painter and somebody that's a photographer and stuff to set up?
So we typically work with developers.
Yeah.
So we work with developers and ad agencies and other people like that to really activate blank space. Another great thing is we're working with some developers now up and down the East Coast who have a retail shopping area or a green space or anything like that. And they want to activate blank space with temporary structures. And that's where it works really well, right?
Yeah.
So if you have in a retail development or anything, if you have unutilized space, you can put a 8 by 20 foot or even an 8 by 10 foot Opbox to activate that space and give a brand an opportunity to be there when they were, either don't have brick and mortar or the brick and mortar is too expensive or anything like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is really a fascinating concept because you're basically not having to go through a process with local planning authority or whatever for a permanent structure, right? I mean, they have an area designated for this. It's going to be a temporary thing. Drop it in, see how it goes. If they get traction, maybe they want to take a more permanent space in a retail location or something.
It's a great incubator. You know, the folks in Portland with the black box, you know, they started a small version of that, right, with a couple different units, and they use that as an incubator to some of their brick and mortar, which is, you know, fantastic. This is just what we do is a much more scalable, flexible way at that. And we're doing it from Maine to, you know, all over the country right now. It's also a nice addition for people to add infrastructure. And we're talking mainly about the retail stuff, but for the community infrastructure opportunities too, it's a great solution.
So can you talk about, so you have OpBox and then you have Adura Building Systems, and how do those complement each other? Or seems like you're constantly evolving from the container, OpBox, and now you're doing building material creation, essentially.
Yeah, so the story is we were really picking up steam with OpBox and starting to build these little modular buildings for folks all over the place. And COVID started. And because we were buying those portable storage units, small shipping containers sort of things from overseas, mostly from China, we couldn't get them anymore. And they were not the quality we really wanted to work towards and those things. And working with a steel shell is complicated and not the best building material anyways. Coming from a boat building background, very familiar with composites. And so we started essentially making our own building material. We started laying up composite walls, composite panels to create OpBoxes. And over the last 4 years and a lot of iterations, that's evolved significantly to what is now the Adura Building System. So being good Mainers, we had to be pretty self-reliant and create our own solution when there wasn't one out there. And we fortunately, stumbled our way into a really amazing solution, which is Adura. And what that is it's a recycled PET core. So water bottles, anything you eat or drink out of, that sort of stuff, PET plastic, which is made into a foam board. And our process takes that foam board and laminates it into a structural panel.
Okay. Like a wall panel or something?
Yes. So think of a sheet of plywood that can be your entire building envelope. So it looks like a sheet of plywood, but it's a lot more than that. We make it in many different thicknesses. So from 1/4 inch all the way up to 4 or 6 inches thick. And it has an R value.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's a composite sandwich. So its strength to weight ratio is kind of through the roof, right? So we're about 75% lighter than plywood, but stronger. And also has that benefit of being having an R value and creating a building envelope. So what we've evolved, and we've really, we certainly aren't the traditional building material manufacturer story because we created this for ourselves to make our product better. And in that journey realized a lot of other people could use this and help do what they do a lot better. So Adura is not only the floor, the walls, and the roof of our structures. The one panel is the inner wall, the outer wall, the insulation, and the structure.
Wow.
Yep, and we've built hundreds of buildings with it so far, and we've just gone to market with Adura as a standalone building system that you can buy in Maine at any Hamilton Marine store and online.
Interesting. That's interesting to buy building materials from a Hamilton Marine. What have you approached, like the Hancocks of the world, Home Depots?
That was a happy accident as well, because as we're, being in Maine, we just opened up our new facility a little less than a year and a half ago in Woolwich, where we've grown our operation from my family farm in Nobleboro with 900 square feet and 5 people to to now we're in 15,000 square feet.
I feel like I'm sitting with Steve Jobs when he first came up with the first iteration of a computer.
Very early, yeah.
Yeah.
But so now we've grown that, and being in Mid-Coast Maine, we have the unbelievable benefit of being surrounded by a lot of talented builders, right? Whether they're boat builders or carpenters or tradespeople, just in general, right? And a lot of which have touched the marine industry, and by that we have a lot of we have boat builders on our team. We have people who have been in and out of the marine industry quite a bit, and in developing this product, they all use it themselves and give it to their friends and that sort of stuff. And as we were developing this and using this product in op boxes, we found that it can also be an excellent product for boat building. And as we're moving through our ICC certification for the building system itself, we're selling the product in different industries as the certifications build, right? And so the marine industry right now is one of our launching points for Adura as a standalone building product. And fortunately, we got it in front of Hamilton Marine, who's an excellent distributor, retailer here in Maine, and they love it. And so they're distributing it now. Our next kind of phase would be with the Hancock or Hammond lumber, that sort of thing. And as we grow our capacity, right, as we grow our ability to produce more and more materials. So that's kind of phase 2. But phase 1, we're not only using it for our own structures, but they're selling it in the marine world all over the country.
Really?
Which is pretty exciting.
For what's the application?
One of the great benefits, and also, frankly, the great challenges being from the entrepreneur operating side, is it's kind of a blank canvas. It can be used for a ton of different things, which is really fun to think about, but it's also a challenge on the focus, strategy, and sales side. Is when you're selling something that can do almost anything, that's a lot of targets to hit, right?
Sure.
So in the boat world, they're using it primarily for structural things like bulkheads, for decking. They're building cabinetry out of it. There's a big YouTuber called Matt Stevenson from the Duracell Project, who's in the Pacific Northwest. He's got a series of videos building out the interior of his boat Duracell with the panels right now, which is super exciting. The video last week is at 70,000 views and climbing. So
that's cool.
Little things like that is starting to come out, but it's all being made right here in Woolwich, Maine.
So the way we got connected was through a mutual friend who's been on this podcast previously, George Casey. And George is like, you really got to connect with Ben from Opbox, because they're starting to look at ways in which they can use their product and Dura building systems to actually create housing. I mean, where is that in the term of evolution, the timeline? Where does that stand?
So our ultimate goal is to be able to produce a 6-piece house.
Tell me more about that.
So an op box, which is just a small structure.
Someone envisioned like maybe a small shipping container or something.
Yeah, but it's more architectural in shape, better looking. It's not just a cube.
Sure.
It can be anything.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal, and what we're really not just proving on paper, but actual practitioners of using the material and building these things. That's a really important thing to us. As we bring this building material to the world, we're bringing it with the experience of having built hundreds of buildings with it already, right? So the ultimate goal is to be able to produce 4 walls, a floor, and a roof, and that all gets shipped on site and it gets put together in a day. And you have your entire building envelope out of one material, not hundreds of materials, and it just simplifies the process.
Yeah.
So again, that inner wall, outer wall, insulation, and structure is just one thing.
Yeah. Can you also, is it part of the idea to add in like the plumbing and the electrical in the wall and stuff, or is that going to have to be?
That will happen down the road. And one of the really exciting things that we're doing this year is we really have found we work best in collaboration with either industry or subject matter experts. So for housing, we're collaborating with the Shelter Institute.
Okay.
Shelter Institute, they're also in Woolwich, third generation timber frame builders and educators. They're probably most well known, not just for the beautiful homes that they build, but for teaching thousands of people over the last 50 years how to build homes. So we're working with them on a kit home that the first version of that will be available to purchase this year,
Really?
along with a course on how to build it yourself.
All right. So this is very interesting because this reminds me of Sears' catalog of homes that existed in the early, 1900s, and which was responsible for some 70,000 housing starts in the United States. And I've shared with some my vision for trying to create 100,000 places, new roofs over people's heads in my lifetime. And I've come to the conclusion that the only way that that's going to be possible is through innovative approaches that create systems in which people can replicate really easily without having to put tremendous amount of effort into it.
Yeah.
In Sears catalog days, there wasn't local zoning and so forth, but people could say, I want the Model A house, for instance, and then they would pay the price and send their check or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it would arrive, all the materials, and they would put it together. It sounds like that's what you're endeavoring to do with Endura.
Yeah, absolutely. And just that's a great, big, hairy, audacious goal that you have, which is awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
And I would love to support it.
Well, that's good because we're right at the right time, it sounds like.
Exactly. But that's essentially the process that we're creating with Shelter, and that's their vision, and we're supporting them in that with the technology. But essentially, that's the case. And again, we're the building envelope. So past the building envelope is all of the regular traditional trades that happen. Like they typically do. But for the building envelope, we take steps out and we simplify it. And so what we endeavor to launch with Shelter this year is a very simple, beautiful, safe, efficient, affordable housing option that can be ordered like you're talking about, kind of like Sears, right? And then they, with Shelter's unique brand of what they do and unique brand of home building, they'll teach you how to do it yourself, right? And with their online courses or their courses at the Shelter Institute itself, and so it's a really exciting thing, and we're gonna kind of crawl, walk, run into it with a small maybe backyard studio ADU type opportunity first, and then hopefully they'll move into larger homes as we go.
That sounds like a good approach. I know there's another company, you may be familiar with them. They actually 3D print homes called Azure, but they use PET plastic as well. Have you heard of them?
Yes.
Yeah, based in California. And they're really targeting the ADU market because in California, like Maine, they've passed ADU by right, essentially. And, other states in the United States are doing this now. I was in Colorado when they passed it and so forth. And so if you have like an ADU type model or like 3 or 4 models, they have, I think, 3 models, and that's it. That's if you don't want one of the 3 models, go shop somewhere else, So they're not trying to be everything to everybody, but then they've seen huge adoption with ADUs. It sounds like you could probably take advantage of what's going on here with that.
Yeah, and I think, on your show with George, George and you had an amazing conversation about managing expectations for housing, right? And how, simple is beautiful.
Yeah.
And like Sears, a lot of us want less options than more, right? And how many people do you talk to about the stress of the home building process and the decision-making process?
Oh, totally.
We've got an amazing team member on our team named John Rossi, who's our architect and who's been, in the building trade and as an architect for a long time. And he says it best when he says, when you go to buy a car, they don't dump all the parts in your front yard and expect you to make all the decisions on how to put it together, right? And that's what you're dealing with building a house, and it's not really fair.
No, it's stressful.
It's super stressful.
I mean, I'm helping a couple buy a new home right now in southern Maine, and they It was like, which faucet do you want? And it was almost like deer in the headlights.
Right, exactly.
There was literally two options, but it's like, could go with this and this. And then, everything's fine. But it's just even that, like trying to make that decision can be very paralyzing for people. And then you compound that with local code officers that maybe aren't even super familiar with what their own authority is to make a final decision. They're like, I don't know. Then you're like, I've never done this before. I don't know either. So I'm going to choose to do nothing. Which brings me to the next question, which is, and maybe it's too early to know, but do you see roadblocks with regard to adoption from, like local municipalities authorizing this in grandma's backyard to be a little tiny home for her grandson after just getting out of college or something like that?
Yeah, I think, I've heard you talk about it before, but that's the biggest challenge, right? Is the code regulatory part in the middle. We have people every day asking for it.
Yeah.
And we can make it today. And one of the things that's interesting about Adura and our technology is it's ready right now. Right? We're building buildings right now. It is practical, it is cost effective, it is safe, and it's ready to go. Unlike some of the amazing technologies that are out there, which are going to make big impacts someday, hopefully. And certainly the housing shortage is going to take multiple solutions, right, to make major impacts, not just in Maine, but nationwide. But we have a technology and a system that's ready to go build affordable housing today. And it's the biggest challenge is the regulatory and the code challenges of, if it just because it's not a 2x4, doesn't mean it's not going to work as well or better, right? Yeah. And that's the thing. So we're one of the major advantages of working with the Shelter Institute in pairing our technology with their very proven, time-tested timber frames is that we kind of bridge the gap of familiarity and what code enforcement officers and regulators stuff are used to seeing. Because what we found, if it's too big of a jump, it's hard, down. Right? And
so you're kind of replacing the traditional panel that you could call any panelized company that's out there that makes it with a sheet of plywood on the outside, maybe some structural foam, maybe not, 2x4s, maybe spray foaming that, and then in some cases even applying the drywall to the inside or sticking some windows in it or whatever. You're replacing that part of the component, right?
All of those parts.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah.
In something that is so
on the inside, it's a paintable material, and I can hang a photo of my kids on the wall.
It is, and we're Class A fire rated.
Really? Wow.
Yep. Yeah. ASTM E84 Class A fire rated, and
they'll make the insurance people happy.
Yeah, and there's and that took a while to get there to develop.
Yeah.
But we just were awarded that certification last year, and it's a big major milestone for us. But yes, so it has all those factors. Does it do everything 100%? No. Yeah. But it takes away a huge amount of labor, effort, supply chain, and logistics risk to the whole process. Right. Particularly not having to build each one of those components, in succession on site. The panels are also waterproof, essentially, that's closed cell foam that doesn't absorb water or anything. So a lot of the challenges with the OSB panels and that sort of stuff is over time they're getting heavier. They are taking on water and those types of things and creating mold and all those types of issues.
It's like a silver bullet you've got, man.
Well, like I said, it's not perfect in every single way, but it definitely it works is the thing. And so as a young company, we're only 20 people, and getting the word out and also getting adoption and not only talking about it but proving it along the way.
Because you're not like you're talking about the fact that people are excited, they'll want this in their backyard, but the people who really need to buy into this to do it at scale is the AEC community, the architects, the engineers, the contractors that really have been, historically forever slow to adopt and innovate because of risk
Right.
and the unknown, and there's no like engineer stamp on it, so we're not sure, and it wasn't in the plans from the architect, so we're not going to use it.
Exactly.
And it seemed like you're just starting to break into that community a little.
Yeah, and there is definitely a roadmap that we're traveling down that includes third-party testing and those engineered stamps and ICC approval and that sort of stuff. And that is kind of where we're at, and the milestones that we're hitting will get us eventually to that full ICC certification nationwide. But how the code is written is literally with structural insulated panels and things like that. If you don't include wood, that's not anywhere in the code book. So they have to write new code for us.
Yeah.
We may test significantly better in all areas because we do the same tests. But because there's no wood in it, they've got to
They're
write
like,
new
go back
rules.
to go.
Exactly.
Go back to the start.
Exactly.
That's interesting. And also, too, we haven't really talked much about this, but maybe you can help us unpack. Like, let's say you're sailing in your boat in the Pacific and you look over and you see a plastic bottle floating along, which I'm sure there's plenty of that. How long is it going to be there for? How many years does plastic just kind of exist in the ether if it's not done recycled?
I mean, for all intents and purposes, forever, right? There is a number, but for what
Longer than we're gonna be around.
We're concerned, and our next, dozen generations, it's forever.
And you're taking that out of the forever equation and putting it into a different forever equation.
Yeah. And so certainly we're not involved in the recycling part, right? Mm-hmm. But what we are focused on doing is being one of the solutions that uses the recycled material, right? And that's historically been one of the challenges is they're able to collect it, they're able to pelletize it and recycle the material, but then what do you do with it, right? And if there's not enough demand to drive that, the recycling piece in that business, the recycling part falls off, right? So we're really proud to have a very potentially scalable use case for that material and create the demand. One of
if that code book we talked about earlier would just get their head out of their rear end and be like, this is okay.
It's all about heads out of rear ends, you know? Yeah. But yes, but one of our major partners, so we're really proud to be working with, is Clink. Do you use Clink?
Yeah, that's such an ironic story. Tell us more about that, because you're going like literally from collecting the stuff that you might need to then use to make
so it's the story there, and the partnership is obviously really great. We're there.
What's Clink for those who aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, so Clink is a recycling technology company. They have some of the best technology in the country for processing bottles and cans, right? So bottles and cans historically, particularly in Maine, we know the drill. You drive up to the redemption center and you got the guy surrounded by boxes, and somehow he's a magician, throwing them all over the place.
Sure.
Was the all-star high school basketball guy that's throwing the bottles, and then miraculously at the end they give you 5 cents per unit, right?
Yeah.
So that has been the solution, right? And it's slow and it's smelly and it's not great. And unfortunately, those redemption centers have really been declining over the last decade and that sort of stuff. So Clink came along, and they have a technology to make that whole experience smoother, faster, and essentially more accountable by they have an amazing app that when you return your green bag of Clink recycling in 24 hours, the money that you just returned in deposit gets put back into your account, and you can either take it as cash, you put it towards your groceries, or you can donate it to a local charity, which is very cool, all on the app.
Oh, I didn't know about the donation option.
Yeah, it's very cool. So they're developing more capabilities like that continuously, and they're Maine-based. They've got an amazing team here. They've got other team members throughout New England, and they're growing nationwide really quickly.
Yeah. And you manufacture their boxes?
So we're their new manufacturer for what they call their sustainability stations. And those are basically the buildings that they receive the bottles and cans. So they partner with grocery stores like Hannaford and Maine. And most people, if they shop at a Hannaford, they're used to seeing that clink building. That's a pretty good story of how we first got introduced. I was in a Hannaford parking lot one day. I was looking at the building, and a lot of us ask ourselves the question of like, why couldn't this be done better? This look at what they're doing. This should be an op box, right? And I called the 1-800 number, and luckily got some really great, super nice customer service folks who, after a couple of calls, passed me along. And about a month later, I got the opportunity to pitch our idea to the COO of Clink, and she was nice enough to give us an opportunity, and now we're their exclusive manufacturer. So
I love the way your mind works, because a lot of times people are just like, well, it'd be nice if that were there, but you're like, I'm going to make it so.
yeah, you gotta. Well, that's a lot of Maine people think like that, right?
Yeah. That's interesting. So now you've got this relationship with Clink where conceivably these continue to proliferate across the United States. Parking lots everywhere have these Clink boxes, which collect the plastic that you need to make the panel to make the home for people to live in.
Yeah, and one interesting thing, just a note about the actual building. So these are 8 foot wide by either 24 feet or 32 feet long. They're totally modular, so they arrive ready to rock and roll on the back of a truck, and then get delivered down. They give us 5 to 10 parking spots, and this arrives. And what's neat about them, and hats off for Clink for literally practicing what they preach on the sustainability side, is these are autonomous buildings that are completely self-contained. So every Clink sustainability station is powered by solar and a wind generator. So each one of these buildings has solar panels and a wind generator, and so they're completely off-grid. And so when you're returning your bottles, that unit can, they essentially scan your bottles in, collect them, keep them climate controlled so that nothing freezes. And it's a really incredible addition and a really incredible innovation in recycling.
My mind immediately goes to modern day mobile home. I mean, with all of the off-grid capability, or connect to grid if you're in it, but if not, no problem. I mean, it seems like that could be an evolution of your building material side.
That's exactly where we want to go. And as we move along in the ICC process, so most manufactured homes are HUD code.
Yeah.
Right. And for HUD code, you need to be in the ICC book, which is the code that they're writing for us, hopefully. And we've actually started. We've got amazing partners in state manufactured homes, who are, again, family business, 3rd generation here in Maine.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Amazing story. And they've been
Tina Marie, are you working with her?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, she's great.
So great Maine connection is her son, Jake, who's now doing a bunch of operation stuff, really smart guy, and hopefully the future of that business.
Yeah.
I coached him at Chever's High School in sailing.
What a small world.
And we came back around and had an awesome moment there. But anyway, so they've given us an opportunity to get into the modular and manufactured home world by the piece that isn't governed under HUD code, which had flexibility for modern materials, is the skirting.
Oh, yeah.
So the skirting that every manufactured home needs, right? These are interesting numbers, is traditionally they'd build the skirting on site, with 2x4s and framing and plywood and that sort of stuff. And it would take a number of days to go around and build all of that. And we did a test where we did one, traditionally how they normally do it, and these people have been doing this for decades, and they know what they're doing. And then they used our 1/2-inch Dura material that we pre-cut to the right width, delivered it to them on a skid, ready to rock and roll. Even though our material's more expensive than plywood, but the labor savings of it being a structural panel, doesn't need any backing, can get taped together, goes together really quickly and efficiently, also has that thermal barrier. We were 20% less expensive per home.
Wow.
Because
they just like fasten it to the bottom frame of the manufactured home or something?
Yep.
Like the metal.
And then you can, we have, we're actually, it's been in development this year where we've actually come out with our own tape, so a Dura tape, so it's like a zip system sort of solution. So by using this material, the whole project was 20% less per home, just because we're simplifying and taking out labor.
Which is critical in an era of ever shrinking availability of construction labor.
Yes, exactly.
It's like you're not replacing somebody's job. You're actually just getting it done because you can with limited labor.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and taking out labor and in the areas in which that don't seem to be growing, right? There doesn't seem to be a lot of people coming out of high school wanting to do framing.
Right.
Right?
Because you can't really see it.
Exactly.
Like people love to do finish carpentry because you can see it, which I am glad there are people that take pride in it.
Yes.
But it's like you need the walled 2x4s there. Well, until now.
Right. And the amazing opportunities that there are in the other trades, plumbing, electrical, stuff like that. People are making incredible livings doing those trades, but which are great opportunities. But in some of these areas of the building envelope that aren't growing, right, and that aren't the best opportunities, we should simplify.
Yeah. It's interesting because you're making a product that you have the ability to make this into a complete delivered system, like Clink on steroids for modular housing, especially if you can get adopted by ICC. But also, there are the still traditional offsite manufacturers of the world, some of whom are currently, you're putting the skirting under their buildings now, that could also buy your material. I would assume it's going to be a price analysis thing for them, like how much is it going to cost versus the traditional method and so forth. But it seems to be extremely scalable business. And then it leads me to like, at some point, right, this thing probably has to go on steroids or not. I mean, are you wanting to try to keep it at just 20 or 30 people, or do you have an idea of growing it a lot bigger?
We want to go as big as we can.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love hearing that.
Yeah, no, we have a lot of ambition left in the tank. That's for sure. We're really just at the starting line.
Yeah.
And so the development of this material and kind of the prove it part, where I feel like we're cresting over the horizon there. And
do you keep it, or is your exit strategy to just sell to a larger Owens Corning of the world or something and move on?
At some point, a strategic partner will probably be necessary to get to that next phase. But right now, there is, as we are focused on, evolving the material, getting really maximizing our opportunity in the marine world, and then evolving it into more traditional construction, whether that's residential or commercial first, either way. Focusing on where we are regionally, there's plenty of opportunity for our scale. Our plant, our facility in Woolwich is only 15,000 square feet. We definitely have a ceiling there, but we're really focused on getting to that ceiling now and then making the next move. Hopefully that's expanding in Maine. Maine isn't, although I think an amazing place and the best place to bring an idea from 0 to 1. The next phase may involve something logistically a little more accessible for the rest of the country, but that is down the road.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you bring that up, because we have a lot of innovative, forward-thinking people that are here, yet when it comes to distribution, we're at the end of the line, in terms of like getting the product out to the population centers of the U.S. and beyond.
Yeah, and that's absolutely, but that is down the road, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a big enough problem here, right? We're 80,000 houses short, and if we can, what'll be a win for us is if we can make a dent in that and we can become part of that solution. now. Not in 10 years when, we figure out how to do 3D printing and stuff
Right.
like that, which is exciting and it's a great technology. And like I said, there needs to be multiple solutions. But for the people that can't buy a home now or unfortunately on the street and that sort of stuff, we're a real solution that we want to help the main communities and prove it here.
So if someone were listening, let's unpack this a little bit in terms of like relatable concepts. You haven't got a house out to the world yet, but you're working toward that. What would be kind of like average size of where you're planning to start square footage wise? And like, how much might that cost? I recognize it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not going to come like your traditional modular home with the bathroom, the kitchen, all that, the appliances already in it. I suppose at some version down the road it could. But I mean, how much would it cost just for the shell and, to get started?
Yeah. So just to clarify again, so we're, even though we make modular op boxes, that's our mission is to kind of empower and propel real home builders for this product that you're talking about now for homes and ADUs, stuff like that. So we're one piece of the puzzle. So Adura is the building envelope. We want to give this material and put it in the hands of professionals that have been building homes and have all that experience for a long, long time and be one component in the whole thing.
Got it.
Where I think the opportunity is in the right, with the right builder, with the right contractor, developer, is you do have the tremendous cost and speed advantage of the building envelope coming together really quickly and really cost effectively. So I think, the vision that George laid out with that, give me a $150,000 home that's market acceptable without any subsidies. I think we can hit that.
Really?
Yes. And by a lot of the efficiencies of being able to knock off, the first 57 steps of the process.
Sure.
Really good friend and partner, Steve Malcolm of Knickerbocker. He, back in the early days when this was just a concept and I was trying to get this off the ground, he laid out a vision of, they're tired of going around the building 12 times before they go inside the building because they have to keep going around and around with all of the steps in the process. And if you can cut out all those steps in the process with one material that does it all, again, it's not the silver bullet, right? So you're not going to be able to do everything traditionally like you're used to. Maybe it is surface mounted conduit. Maybe it is, some things that are a little bit different, but it gets you to actual housing affordability.
But at some point, if you had certain designs that you were building for a customer, for instance, you could put in the chases for electrical and plumbing and all that kind of stuff, or is it not really set up to be able to do
Certainly.
that?
And we have that capability in development.
Yeah.
Not quite there yet, but I think if you were to ask a 30-something-year-old couple whether it's having a little surface mounted conduit or not being able to afford it to buy a house.
They'd take the surface mounted conduit.
They take the surface mounted conduit.
Yeah.
My wife's an amazing interior designer, and fortunately she's influencing a ton of this stuff as we look into housing and all of that. And there's some amazing opportunities in interior design out there to take a solid wall panel and build out a space that you couldn't tell the difference. And it's significantly less expensive.
That's really cool. Interesting stuff. So where do you see kind of like, we talked about scaling your business and so forth, but I'm curious, the future of modular construction in like the next 5 to 10 years. And do you see yourself leading or pushing that innovation even more?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we're really focused on our part of the solution, which is the building envelope.
Yeah.
And for the people who are also leaders in the industry and bringing these housing products to market and stuff like that, we just want to continue the innovation, continue to develop, and propel them to be able to do their thing even better.
If I wanted to build a house tomorrow, which I'm considering doing, could I call you and just order
Is this
panels?
what we're doing tomorrow?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess we're building a house tomorrow. Babe.
Here we go.
Could I call you and like order these panels to be delivered to my job site to start building with them, or is somebody going to have a problem with that?
You could, and because the ICC part is because we're not certified, we just work individually with that code enforcement officer and essentially bring our third-party testing and all the precedents there, because we do have certified testing to verify all of the structural components, the ASTM 84 fire rating, all of that sort of stuff. So we certainly could, and that's essentially what we do with the OpBox structures now, is we work with individual code enforcement officers, and we have units in from everywhere from Portland up to this Augusta area, to Lewiston, Auburn, all over the state, certainly, as far as we just shipped OpBox units to San Diego.
Oh, really?
Yeah. San Diego, Austin, New York City, Atlanta. Those places all have OpBox units in them. So we certainly have the precedence.
So is anybody living in a building with the Endura panels?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet. Other than Santa at LL Bean. We do have an Endura building in the middle of the LL Bean campus
Yeah, that
right
was
now.
you had a ticket shack at Mount Abram too, right?
Yeah, Beans has been an amazing partner. The Ticket Shack is neat, but the project that we do with them every year that I love the most is we develop these beach boxes. The beach boxes are self-contained, solar powered spaces. They're 8 foot by 10 foot, and they're full of everything you never need to go to the beach for a day from LL Bean. And they're all honor system, use it as you like. And we have one at every state beach in Maine and Massachusetts.
Oh, really?
It's a program we started 3 years ago with them. And basically it has a Bluetooth lock on the outside, and you answer some fun outdoor questions with your phone, gives you the code, you go in, and you've got chairs, umbrellas, bocce, all that sort of stuff, courtesy of LL Bean, at these different state beaches, and you just use it during the day and return it. We did the first one of those that we called a recreation station about 4 years ago in Boston with a developer. And it's in Boston. It activated a green area. Stuff doesn't get stolen. People just use it and have fun with their families. And it's like
it's great because you have to check in. So they kind of have
there's
a
those
list
things,
of people that they're collecting to get information, data, and figure out what's going on. It's like probably good for them as a retailer as well.
It is, yes. It definitely has the marketing component, but it makes you feel good just about your community and humanity, because they really barely lose anything. And it's just a nice thing for people when they're using the beach for the day. So Beans has been an amazing partner in that, and that'll be back this summer in 5 locations in Maine and Massachusetts.
That is really cool. And so in 2022, you won a competition with Greenlight Maine, their pitch competition, right? And this was, how did that, I mean, not a lot of people are familiar with Greenlight Maine, I don't think. And how did that impact your business?
Working with the Greenlight Maine folks, first of all, it's just a blast. They're really fun to work with, super professional, and got to meet a lot of other awesome entrepreneurs and innovators here in Maine in that process. And the impact certainly helped us get the word out locally here in Maine, and it's always good to go through that process of simplifying and streamlining your idea down to something that people can understand in a 90-second pitch, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that is always super helpful. And it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah. There's a lot of changes, it seems like, that are going on, and it's encouraging to hear your commitment, to staying or having a footprint in Maine, certainly understanding that as this continues to grow, there's going to have to be broader logistic partnerships and things that branch out beyond Maine. But it's interesting that you work with LL Bean, because they're a company that has now a massive global reach, yet has really chose to continue to invest here in Maine with the expansion of their headquarters, and now this huge expansion going on of their retail store. which is pretty exciting. And I think sometimes people in Maine don't believe it's possible to have these kinds of world-class things in Maine, like we're Maine, we don't deserve that or something. And when I hear stories like yours, it's really inspiring because we see that entrepreneurship and innovation can thrive here as long as people are persistent and have a will to do it.
Well, I think the Maine brand is mostly underrated for the impact that it has outside of the state. And I think I only learned that because I came up through the marine world and sailing, and carrying the fact that I grew up in Maine and learned how to sail here and learned from, the amazing people in the boat building world here in Maine. Served me super well all over the place, bringing that. And so I've always really valued the brand. And now taking that same approach with the quality of craftsmanship that we just do here and being able to bring that. Another good example is one of our clients is Safe Harbor Marinas, and they're the country's largest marina boatyard owner and operator. And we're doing a series of our Opbox retail units for them, and that was the reason we just shipped some to San Diego to one of their properties. And so they made the decision, instead of building these spaces, these buildings locally or finding another vendor, they made the decision to expand their retail footprint nationwide with this little company in Woolwich, Maine, not only because of Adura, but because of the craftsmanship that we do here. So that Maine brand, and we make sure that it's on every box, that it's made in Maine.
That's cool.
That's a serious thing.
Yeah. Well, I think you're also, touching upon a component of, addressing environmental, global warming and all these kinds of impacts of, waste products that can have kind of two paths forward. One is helping solve additional problems for humanity or not. And you're pulling these things back and creating the demand for the use of it. It's like this circular economy, really, it seems like, in a lot of ways. Just so many parallels to sailing too. You have a business and an entrepreneurial focus, but in sailing, if the wind changes directions, you got to get your butt out there and move things around and shift the boom right and try to capture the wind. Not like a motorboat, you just hammer down further on the throttle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of adjustments along the way.
Yeah. One of the trips that I took after high school, a friend of mine's dad sold an ice cream company and bought a catamaran in the Virgin Islands and called it the Banana Split.
Cool.
And we went down there, and that was the first experience I had with sailing, which was really pretty eye-opening to me because I grew up in a world of just like start the motor and go, and really, was kind of naive to how much goes into like making it work to go forward. It's a constant effort. Yeah. And sometimes you catch a wind and you can relax for a little bit. But then all of a sudden that sail just starts to have some slack in it. You got to get to work again.
Yeah. It's the most rewarding work you can do, though, right?
Yeah.
Because once you get going, it's all worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
So our catamaran is called the Wild and Woolly.
The Wild and Woolly?
Yeah, but I love the Banana Split. That's really
creative.
good. Emma, my wife, and I just finished rebuilding the Wild and Woolly over the last 5 years.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And do you have any designs to go anywhere with it?
We just did. We really good family friend of ours originally built this boat here in Maine at Green Marine, which is one of the legendary boat builders, catamaran multi-hull builders in Maine. And he built it in the early 90s, and we kind of adopted it about 5 years ago, and it was in pretty rough shape. And so we've been rebuilding it, building the business and building the boat at the same time, each of which had stressful moments, but both are rewarding. And and we just finally finished that project. And then this fall we sailed it down to the Chesapeake, and it's in Virginia now.
Wow.
But that's our passion project side and what we really enjoy to do together.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someday I would like, my goal is to leave here in the Kennebec River and go up through, I think there's this circle chain that you can go up through the Great Lakes and up through Canada and back down.
It's called the Great Loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're called loopers, the people that do that.
Oh, really?
Yep, it's a fun trip. I took a boat from here through the Erie Canal one time and up the Hudson and through the Erie Canal into Buffalo. And I tell you, when you get to the lake, sailing in the lakes, it's a weird thing. It's fresh water and everything moves a little different, and it's brown and it's cool, but it's a weird
trip.
experience.
Yeah. That's interesting. There was a guy recently that did one with a trawler, and he started from here, and it took him all summer, and he came back like right at the beginning of fall, and then docked up at the dock right outside this building.
Well, when we hit your 100,000 houses, we'll go do the Great Loop.
Well, I'm expecting some material to work with here pretty soon, Ben. So get cracking.
Let's do it.
Well, it's been exciting really talking with you about this. I'm a firm believer that the only way that we're going to address the housing crisis is with innovation and new solutions, which sometimes are at odds with an industry that is slow to adopt change for good reason. I mean, you want to keep people safe, and there's vested parties like with financing and insurance and the like that want to protect their moves, and sometimes innovation feels scary to them. But it really is the only path forward in terms of being able to get the cost in line with what people can truly afford. And furthermore, addressing other social issues, like waste and so forth that are negatively impacting the environment. So I'm really excited to have met you, and I'm really more excited about seeing what comes with this in the future, and perhaps maybe even buying some of your product to build some of these houses.
Yeah, let's do it. That'd be great. Awesome.
So
Thanks,
anyone
Matt.
else, Ben, that wants to learn more about what you're doing, you've got a website, social media, where can they go?
Yeah, you can find us on adurabuildingsystem.com or theopbox.com. Find us there, Instagram, YouTube. We're all there.
And when you see that Clink box, think Ben Davis.
Well, think Clink first.
You're the behind though. I mean, you got to make the thing, right, for them now?
Yeah, it's a big team effort, but we're super excited to be doing it, and come into a grocery store near you.
Awesome. Hopefully be there home when they get home someday too.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us today, Ben.
Thanks a lot, Matt.